to Snetterton, everybody, in advance of our final race of the 2024 championship season for the GT Cup. Round 26, our last sprint race of the day, will be coming up shortly. The cars just heading out of the pit lane now, ready for this last opportunity for the drivers to tackle the Snetterton 300 circuit. 25-minute race lies ahead, no pit stops to worry about. It's a flat-out sprint. The championship pretty much decided in terms of everything other than who is going to walk away with the sprint title for this season. And in reality, all we need to do is see Warren Gilbert, who I'm sure will be driving the car this time through, the number 3 Lamborghini, just make sure that he outscores Seamus Jennings at the wheel of the GCAT Racing Porsche, which should be able to do because there's lesser entries in GT3 this weekend than there is in GTC, which is where Warren Gilbert runs. Still a clear day here. Still rather chilly though. It has clouded over a little bit since our pit stop race earlier on. Temperatures have dropped a little bit as well, not by much. It was what, I think 15.7 degrees earlier on, so it's dropped a little bit. Track temperature will have dropped a little bit. It's probably only going to be maybe 2 degrees north of what the air temperature is. But it's a clear day. It could have been far worse this time of year. So the crews, the teams, the officials are all waiting on the grid for the drivers to appear. I think we're still awaiting notification as to who the drivers are going to be behind the wheel of this one. We know the pro sporting drivers can't start the sprint race on Sunday, so we know that certainly that rules out some drivers from this race. We know the pros can't get involved in the sprint races, but where you've got 2 sporting drivers together, those are the ones where we don't know which one of the 2 will be driving the car. So I'm hoping maybe our RF camera down there might be able to show some shots of drivers' heads, which will allow us to work out as say, for instance, the number 33 car who's driving it. Is it Seamus Jennings? Could it be Greg Caton? Because either of them are eligible to drive that car. We know the Ferrari is going to be started by Bonamy Grimes because Bon shares with a pro driver, which is Johnny Molan, and therefore Johnny can't be involved in this one. But yeah, some of the other cars, it's slightly up in the air as to whom might be starting behind the wheel of it. So let's just have a quick look. That is Seamus Jennings, right, so good work there by our RF camera. So Seamus Jennings starts the number 33 car. I don't know who's starting on pole position either, so I think it'll be Warren Gilbert as and when the car appears onto the front row of the grid. Who else don't I know? I don't know who'll be starting the BMW at the tail end of the field, the number 21 car. And I don't know who's starting the number 72 BMW either, whether that be Chris Murphy or Kev Clark. But probably the more important one to try and work out is there is Charlotte Gilbert. So I think it had to be Charlotte Gilbert in that one because Tom Rawlings is a pro sporting driver. The BMW just coming up into position now is another one I've got a question mark over, but we can probably work that one out as the race wears on. But I'm not sure who's starting for pole position. The Lamborghini that's just coming up to position now, I think, will be Warren Gilbert. I think I heard the beginning of the weekend that Warren was going to do both of the sprint races, and hopefully we'll get an idea and a picture as to whether that is Warren or Fraser Fennick that's behind the wheel of that one. So, quick look, and can't quite tell from there. That is Warren Gilbert. Yep, so that's Warren. Thank you very much. So that is Warren Gilbert. Thanks to Shane, our RF cameraman, for sorting that out. And then the BMW, I can see Shane striding purposefully with the camera on his shoulder down towards the BMW to work out whether that's Chris Murphy or Kev Clark. And then there we go, he's heading towards the BMW now. Let's see if we can look at that. We've managed to sort it, haven't we? So it's that's Chris Murphy. Thank you very much. That was we managed to sort that out. Can you get to the BMW as well, Shane? It's at the tail end of the field, the number 21 car. I think that's probably going to be Darren Ridge, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. That's the Simpson Motorsport pink and black one that's at the very tail end of the order, and if we can work that one out, then we've got all of our starting drivers there. Let's have a quick look. I think we're almost there. We've managed to sort this one out on the fly a little bit. I think that's Darren Ridge. I think that's Darren Ridge. So James Kay would have had a painted helmet, so I think that's Darren that's behind the wheel of that. We'll go with that one. So there goes Michael Lyons punching the fist of Darren Ridge. Well done to our on-site production team for sorting out that one, because they're usually notified prior to the race, but I've not seen the drivers that are involved in this one notified. So we've managed to get through them all by hook or by crook. We've got there, so brilliant stuff. Proper team effort, that. So then the cars lined up on the grid. Final race of the season coming up. I say everything is pretty much sorted now, other than which direction the sprint challenge is going. Seamus Jennings was leading that for sporting drivers that are involved, and pro sporting drivers in the sprint races. He was leading it by 3 points going into this weekend, but Warren Gilbert outscored him yesterday, and Warren, I think, probably just needs just a finish in this one to secure the sprint title. And if he can pick up, I think, 6 points in this one, it probably means that he finishes runner-up overall in the championship. So it will mean that 2024 has been a mega season for Top Cats Racing, who've clean swept their group overall, sprint, sporting, teams, and will finish first and second overall in the championship. That's what they're looking to try and do. So the cars are on their final formation lap of the 2024 championship season. Let's guide you through the way that they will line up. Pole position goes the way of Warren Gilbert at the wheel of the number 3 Top Cats Racing Lamborghini, and it's the sister car of his wife, Charlotte Gilbert, that sits alongside. Row 2 of the grid, it's the Red River Sport FF Corsa Ferrari, the 458 Challenge Spec car of Bon Grimes, and for company, it's the GCAT Racing Porsche number 33, which will be Seamus Jennings for this race. As we move on to the next row of the grid, Paul Bailey will be driving the Kendall Developments Lamborghini Huracan, and alongside it's the first of the cars in Group GTH, Michael Arant for Paddock Motorsport in the McLaren Artura. Row 4 of the grid, Chris Murphy for Woodrow Motorsport has Doc Bush for Team Parker Racing and the Porsche that sits alongside. And then we'll move on to row number 5 of the grid, the inside of the 5th row of the grid. Mark Ellman drives the Ginetta for SVG Motorsport, with Rupert Williams for Jolt Racing in the McLaren 570S that runs in Group GTA. And the final row of the grid, the Simpson Motorsport BMW, which will be Darren Ridge, I believe, for this race. And that's the way that they line up for our final race of the 2024 championship season. So the cars making their way around the circuit for what are the final time this season. We did notify ourselves yesterday, I think, as to what the GT Cup Championship looks like for 2025. The season will get underway at Donington Park in March, directly the weekend before the British GT Championship gets underway. So hopefully that will see a swelling of entries for that one. Or interest is already good for 2025, I've got to say. We have, let's be honest, had a fewer numbers in 2024, but 2025 is already looking like it's going to be back to normal service and good grids and good variety amongst all of the different categories that we'll see. Championship follows a similar format in terms of the circuits that we will visit in 2025, but there will be announcements shortly about the format for at least one, if not a couple of those races. May well be different from the regular sort of sprint and shorter 50-minute pit stop races that we've seen. So keep your eyes towards social media, because that will all get announced in due course over the course of the next few weeks. So we are about to go racing for the final time in 2024. We start things on the 29th and 30th of March in 2025 at Donington Park. We'll go to Brands Hatch in May. 2 race meetings in June. We've got Snetterton in June next year. Then it's Silverstone in August. September will see us at Donington. And we'll conclude the season back here at Snetterton on the 11th and 12th of October in 12 months' time. So the 2 Top Cats Racing cars who really have been the team to beat this year. And how fitting is it that they both line up on the front row of the grid. Husband and wife, Warren Gilbert from pole. Outside the front row of the grid, Charlotte Gilbert. The 2 Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghinis. Way to tell them apart. Yellow wing mirrors, Warren Gilbert. Pink wing mirrors will be Charlotte Gilbert. Pace car peels off into the pit lane. So for the final time in 2024, we're about to go racing in the GT Cup Championship. The final round, round 26, is about to get underway here at Snetterton. Lights go out on the gantry, and the pack of cars head up towards Ritchie's Corner for the first time. Warren Gilbert leading Charlotte Gilbert as they head up towards Ritchie's Corner. Watch out for Bon Grimes. Can he squeeze through into second? No, he can't. The Ferrari's there in 3rd place. It's going to be Seamus Jennings who's there in 4th place. Paul Bailey 5th. Chris Murphy 6th. Michael Arant there in 7th position as they head down towards the Wilson hairpin for the first time. Lamborghini from Porsche, from Ferrari from Porsche, the top 4, as they start to stretch their legs up towards Palmer for the first time. Through the left-hander there will go. It's a Top Cats Racing 1-2 in the early stages of this one. The team looking on. Fraser Fennick looking on as well. The man who's done such a good job behind the wheel of the race-leading number 3 Lamborghini so far this year when he shared with Warren Gilbert. As though Paul Bailey might have dropped a little bit down through the order. And are we going to have a change for second here? There, by the look of things, well, there's damage to cars on circuit. There's damage to the front of the McLaren Artura of Michael Arant. And I didn't see Paul Bailey's car where I would have expected it to be. So have those two had a coming together? There's bits of debris on the track down there. But it's still Top Cats Racing 1-2. The Ferrari there in the next position. And yes, we have got a slow Paul Bailey on track, and we've got a slow Michael Arant on track. And Paul Bailey, I think, is indicating that he's not happy with Michael Arant, but I'm going to be careful what I say here. Paul Bailey is experienced, and yep, Michael Arant is less experienced. A mistake may well have been made, but weaving around on circuit is maybe perhaps not the thing to do. So out of the bomb hole they'll go, up towards Coram. It is Warren Gilbert that leads from Charlotte Gilbert, who is under enormous pressure from Bon Grimes that sits behind. Onto the brakes, in towards the left-hander at Murray's. They will thread their way. And has the Ferrari got the legs to catch up with the Lamborghini over the start-finish line? So Warren Gilbert is just pulling away, urged on by Fraser Fenwick, who was leaning over the pit wall there, waving his arms, saying, come on, crack on. It is the final sprint race of the 2024 championship season. Nothing to choose between the first four after the first lap of the race. Through in 5th position at the end of the first lap is Mark Ellman. Paul Bailey is still limping the Lamborghini back in towards the pit lane. Chris Murphy is there in 6th place, Doc Bush 7th, Rupert Williams in 8th place. Paul Bailey is not going to be in 9th place at the end of this lap, because even the car of Darren Richards managed to squeeze his way through and pass. Paul Bailey and I think Michael Arant surely destined for the pit lane and retirement in both the McLaren and the Lamborghini respectively. And we might have a change for 2nd place here. Bon Grimes is trying to get a run on Charlotte Gilbert down in towards Agostini. The Ferrari sneaks up the inside of the Lamborghini and goes through into 2nd place. And now that the door is open, can Seamus Jennings capitalise? Well, he's having a go, but I don't think he's quite going to get there when they head towards the left-hander at Hamilton. So up towards the braking area for Oggies. It's Warren Gilbert from Bon Grimes, from Charlotte Gilbert from Seamus Jennings. And they turn their way through the right-hander, and all 4 of them start to stretch their legs as they head along the Bentley Straight at the end of the lap, which is where Paul Bailey is now staying well and truly offline and making sure that he doesn't get involved in the backmarker lappery that is just taking place on his car. Such a shame for Paul Bailey and Michael Arant. It's just one of those things, really. You know, we've had very little damage and very little car-to-car contact all season in GT Cup, but unfortunately didn't quite catch sight of exactly what happened. But clearly Paul Bailey was unimpressed with whatever happened up there at the Wilson hairpin, and his car will surely be destined for retirement. So Warren Gilbert still leading the way, but the pressure is building, isn't it? Bon Grimes up to 2nd place. And remember, this is all for 1st, 2nd and 3rd in Group GTC. The Porsche runs in Group GT3. In a straight line, the Lamborghinis will have the legs on the slightly older and lesser powered Ferrari. So Bon Grimes is really going to have to work overtime to try and keep those very fast Lamborghinis behind him. In a straight line, Charlotte Gilbert is easily able to just edge her way through and past. Ferrari giving away the best part of, I think, 100 horsepower, if not more, over the Lamborghinis. So briefly up to 2nd, back down to 3rd. He goes, and he might be coming under attack even for that now, because the Porsche of Seamus Jennings was closing up, but was just too far away when they got towards the Wilson hairpin. So down the short straight, up towards Palmer, through the left-hander, and then once they've worked their way through the left-hander, they'll be down the short straight. We've still got Paul Bailey trying to limp his way back round into the pit lane. He's been very careful how he's brought that car back into the pit lane, but no obvious signs of real damage to the car, actually. I thought there might be telltale signs of bits of bodywork hanging off, but from the angles I've seen, can't exactly tell who it was, or what it was that's caused that car to falter. So out of the next corner, up towards Williams there will go. Top Cats Racing 1-2 at this stage. Still the Red River Sport FF Corsa prepared Ferrari of Bon Grimes sitting there in 3rd position, trying to attack, having to defend at the same time. And then as they head down the straight, in a straight line, is the Ferrari going to lose a further place to the Porsche? No, not quite. Seamus Jennings, see the nose of the car dip, but again, he was just too far away. Right, okay, I can see front suspension damage to Paul Bailey's car. I can see it now from this angle, so looks as though maybe there was a clatter in the side from Michael Arant's McLaren, and that's what is going to cause retirement of the final race of the 2024 championship season for the outgoing champion Paul Bailey. Disappointing end to the season for Paul. Onto the brakes, through the left-hander. Bon Grimes again trying to see if he can do something to wrestle 2nd place away from Charlotte Gilbert, but in a straight line the Ferrari runs out of puff earlier than the Lamborghinis, and it will run out of puff earlier than the Porsche in the hands of Seamus Jennings, who is looking to try and edge his way alongside, but he's on the outside line heading in towards Ritchie's. take a later apex, try and get the undercut going up towards Wilson. But again, I don't quite think he's close enough then. Bon is going to try and close that off, is he? Is the Porsche going to go through? No, still too far away is Seamus Jennings to dive up the inside. So it's still Lamborghini 1-2. There's the damage to the side of the Lamborghini. And the damage to the wheel as well, that's caused that suspension damage. So Michael Arant, I would imagine, harpooned into the side of the unfortunate Paul Bailey. I'm sure conversations will go on, apologies will be made, but disappointing end either way for both cars, because both cars out of the race. Michael Arant didn't even make it back round to the pit lane, Paul Bailey did. Michael's stranded out on circuit somewhere in what I think is the final sector. So through Oggies up towards Williams with 17 3/4 minutes of the race to go. Warren Gilbert not getting away from Charlotte Gilbert, who in turn isn't getting away from Bonamy Grimes, who in turn is not really putting a great deal of daylight between himself and Seamus Jennings. Down the straight there will go. Last time through we saw a new fastest lap of the race for Charlotte Gilbert in second place. Are we going to see a change for third this time as Seamus Jennings does go through? The Group GT3 Porsche goes through and up the inside of Bon Grimes. So that means that a further place is lost. Off the overall podium goes Bonamy Grimes, and Seamus Jennings can now sort of roll his sleeves up a little bit and bring the fight to the two Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghinis that lie ahead of the G-Cat racing car. So this is lap number 4 that's about to be completed. Warren Gilbert was leading by under 0.4 of a second. Seamus Jennings gets a much better run coming out of the corner, draws himself alongside and ahead, I think, of Charlotte Gilbert. Is he going to clear the car, though, by the time they get towards Ritchie's corner? That's a difficult thing. The outside line, I don't think he's quite going to do it. Yes, he can. Just sweeps across the nose of Charlotte Gilbert's car there. So Seamus Jennings now up into second place. Sets the fastest lap of the race that time through with a 1 minute 57.017. Bon Grimes looks as though he's got a puncture on the tail end of that car. He'd just taken the place away from Charlotte Gilbert, but I do think he's got a left rear puncture on that car. Now that might be maybe a little bit of debris that's been deposited around the circuit that's caused that, because I haven't seen him clobber a sausage curb. I haven't seen any damage, but I think he just turned into that corner and the tyre said enough was enough. It certainly looked as though it was flat by the time he'd spun the car. Now we might have a change for the lead of the race here. Seamus Jennings, having gained one place, would like to gain another. He's not going to do it up at Hamilton, so it's still Warren Gilbert leading the way. Seamus Jennings in second place. Remember, these two drivers are potentially also still fighting it out for the Sporting Challenge. Seamus Jennings can score fewer points because of the number of entries in GT3 this weekend. And yes, it is a puncture for Bon Grimes. I was absolutely right. So he's got a left rear puncture on the car. So he'll bring that car in towards the pit lane. I'm sure Red River Sport will drop a new Pirelli tyre on there, but any chance of a result has disappeared for Bon Grimes in this one and the team. But Warren Gilbert bouncing over the curbs through Nelson, still hanging on to the lead of the race. At the moment, he will still be outscoring the car behind him in terms of points towards the Sprint Challenge, I should say. I think I said Sporting Challenge a few moments ago. I mean the Sprint Challenge. And Warren Gilbert simply almost just needs to finish this race to accumulate enough Sprint Point Challenge to outscore Seamus Jennings. The one thing he can't afford to do, though, is get involved in a battle that might cause car-to-car contact. So I think, yeah, he's sensibly, let him go through. Let him go through, because as long as you finish the race, Warren, it does look as though it's going to be a clean sweep of the titles for Top Cats Racing this year. So through goes Seamus Jennings. As he did yesterday, he now leads the sprint race here at Snetterton. So Seamus Jennings leads from Warren Gilbert in second place. Charlotte Gilbert's there in third. That now means that Mark Ellman, leading Group GTH, moves up into fourth place. Chris Murphy in the Group GTC BMW moves up into fifth place. And up to sixth should be Doc Bush, I would have thought, because Bon Grimes, I think, has now retired out on circuit and hasn't quite been able to limp the Ferrari back through into the pit lane. We'll also promote Rupert Williams up a place, up into seventh place. And Darren Ridge will move up into eighth place in this final race of the season, as the race leaders turn their way out of Agostini and up towards Hamilton. Last time through, Seamus Jennings, the race leader in the Porsche, new fastest lap of the race once more, 1 minute 56.817. 1:56.817. How does that compare to yesterday's sprint race? Seamus Jennings did a 1 minute 53.8 yesterday, so there's still a bit more to come, but you are very limited for the amount of tyres you can utilise in GT Cup. So the tyres are being, no doubt, not quite as helpful today. A bit more second-hand because they've got a few more miles on them than they would have had at the beginning of the weekend. So up towards Brundle and Nelson. There'll be traffic to deal with before too much longer, which will be Darren Ridge at the wheel of the BMW M4 that's being run by Simpson Motorsport this weekend. Out of the bomb hole up towards Coram, and one more corner to go before they'll then complete lap number 6 in this race. And we are pretty much heading towards the halfway point of it now as well. 25-minute race, coming up towards 13 minutes to go. So through and over the start-finish line. Now where is Seamus Jennings going to meet Darren Ridge in the traffic, who was very good earlier on of moving out of harm's way. Again, he sees them coming, allows Seamus Jennings to carve his way by on the way in towards Ritchie's corner. Darren Ridge can't get out of the way, of course, mid-corner, but straight away blends away and allows the two Lamborghinis to go through. Warren Gilbert in the yellow wing-mirrored car, still being followed by Charlotte Gilbert with the pink wing mirrors to her car. Through the left-hander at Palmer. It has been a mega season for Top Cats Racing. The team's champions for this year. There will be the GTC champions for this year. They're highly likely to finish as first and second in the overall championship this year. It looks as though they've already stitched up the Sporting Challenge category, and well, the Sprint Challenge category is surely going to go the way of Warren Gilbert as long as he manages to stay where he is. And even if he were to lose the position to his wife, Charlotte Gilbert, that sits behind, I still think that's sufficient for Warren to scoop up the sprint title for this year. We've also got a good fight going on for what will be 4th and 5th as well. Mark Ellman at the wheel of the Group GTH leading Ginetta, the G56 car that's prepared by Andy Johnson's SVG Motorsport team, is still ahead of the Woodrow Motorsport BMW in the hands of Chris Murphy. Chris, the former champion, trying to hunt down Mark Ellman, who's joining Owen Hizzy behind the wheel of the car for this weekend. They had a winning Group GTH earlier on in the pit stop race. Mark Ellman and Owen Hizzy leading Group GTH here and leading it comfortably as well. But are they going to hang on to the place that they're in, which is 4th place? A flash of the lights from Chris Murphy. More power in a straight line for his BMW. Mark Ellman does a sensible thing, lets the car go through, let the Group GTC car go through and ahead. And that way you're still on course for a win in Group GTH, albeit at the moment now down into 5th place rather than the 4th that he was occupying. So 11 minutes to go. Seamus Jennings still with that fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 55.2. Nobody else is even in the 1 minute 55s at the moment. He did a 1:55.7 last time through. The next quickest car was Charlotte Gilbert, who managed a 1:56.5, so she was about 0.8 of a second slower than the race leader. Traffic to deal with on the Shape E46 BMW, about to lap the GT4 spec car, the new shape car of Darren Ridge. The Simpson Motorsport car that's joined us at Donington Park and is back out here at Snetterton. And again, Darren Ridge will see that traffic coming. He has been very well aware of his surroundings, and again just lets Chris Murphy go through, lets Mark Ellman goes through, and then he'll drop back onto the racing line himself. So again, good use of the mirrors there from Mark Ellman, understanding exactly what's going on around him, just making sure he doesn't compromise the battles that are going on whilst they come up to lap him. So into the final third of this race, as good as. And as they turn their way through Agostini, that battle that we're looking, the overall race leader is down towards the bottom of the Bentley Straight. So through Brundle, through Nelson. This is lap number 8 at the moment that we've got Seamus Jennings on. So already having had a solid weekend of racing, GCAT Racing. They claimed a win in the sprint race yesterday. They were second in the pit stop race yesterday. They won the pit stop race earlier on today. So it's looking as though, a bit like Donington Park, the previous race weekend that we had, where they had really good results there. They're on for a string of good results here. A couple of wins and a couple of seconds potentially if they stay where they are, which is a great end to the season for GCAT Racing. And again, Seamus Jennings, new fastest lap of the race that time through, extending the leading margin to 4 seconds, 4.1 seconds now nearly between himself and Warren Gilbert that sits behind. That's a 1 minute 54.788 from the race leader. Warren Gilbert behind doing his best individual lap of the race. Charlotte Gilbert doing her best individual lap of the race. And the top 3 still pushing hard. Lead of Group GT3 going the way of the race leader. The lead of Group GTC going the way of the number 3 Lamborghini in the hands of Warren Gilbert. The lead of Group GTH going the way of the number 86 Ginetta of Mark Ellman. The lead of Group GTA going the way of the number 370 Jolt Racing McLaren 570S of Rupert Williams. Of course, we've got no car in Group GTO with absentee Richard Chamberlain today, and also Paul Bailey having retired his car out on circuit earlier on. So they're on lap number 9 currently, starting to work their way onto the Bentley Straight. The lead advantage would have grown further again this time through. Seamus Jennings is not slowing his pace at all. Again, an absolute best first sector from Seamus Jennings. He's a little bit slower through the second sector of the lap. However, the second sector was an absolute best for Warren Gilbert, who could well be on course again to chip away at the fastest lap of the race potentially. So Warren did a 1:56.2 last time through. He needs to get down into the 1:54s if he wants to set the fastest lap of the race. But the lead advantage does look as though it has stretched a little bit through the first sector. It's come down through the second sector. 7.5 minutes remaining on the clock. And over the start-finish line onto lap number 10 they will come this time through. Seamus Jennings still leading the way. Lead advantage was 4 seconds. This time through, it's down to 3.6 seconds. So that's a 1:56 from the race leader, 1:56.1. It's a 1:55.7 from Warren Gilbert, who again sets his best individual lap of the race that he's done so far. His wife Charlotte Gilbert behind does exactly the same, sets her best individual lap of the race so far. Top 3 separated just 5.3 seconds at this stage. Chris Murphy's a long, long way adrift in 4th position. He's yet to come over the start-finish line as the former champion. At the wheel of his car that lies 3rd in Group GTC. And then remember, we've got Mark Ellman, who is running 5th, will be the first of the Group GTH cars. Chris Murphy is 33 seconds adrift of the number 2 Lamborghini in the hands of Charlotte Gilbert. And still only 1.4 seconds ahead of Mark Ellman's Ginetta. So those two are still pretty close together. In fact, that's probably the closest battle we've got at the moment. The squabble for 4th and 5th place between the number 72 BMW and the 86 Ginetta. So on to the Bentley Straight yet again goes our race leading trio. Porsche from Lamborghini. Down the Bentley Straight, Seamus Jennings and the sector time suggests that he is lapping slower than he has previously done, which also suggests that the lead advantage will dwindle further. It came down by half a second last time through, from hovering around about 1.4 seconds to just under 4.1 seconds to just under 3.7 seconds. Let's see what it can do this time as we get Seamus Jennings up towards the final corner, which will be the left-hander at Murray's, where he'll be heading shortly with 5 minutes to go. We squeezed 13 laps out of the sprint race yesterday, where they're about to complete 10 laps this time through, and there's enough time on the clock, for 3 further laps. So through goes Seamus Jennings. The lead advantage comes down by another half a second. It's down to 3.1 seconds first to second place. Warren Gilbert yet again does his best individual lap of the race. Charlotte Gilbert yet again does her best individual lap of the race. That was a good lap from both of them that time through, pretty much matching each other for pace. It was a 1:55.2 from Warren, it was a 1:55.3 from Charlotte. So Seamus Jennings now, I think he's probably just pacing himself and not overdriving the car. He's got enough of a gap between himself and Warren Gilbert so he can just control the pace, and if he's got a little bit in reserve he can utilise it. His lap times and his sector times have just dropped off a little bit. As for the squabble between Chris Murphy, that's Fraser Fenwick. Double thumbs up from Fraser Fenwick. He knows that he has had a brilliant first season in GT Cup racing, partnered up with Warren Gilbert. Tom Rawlings, the other young driver in that team, has been partnered up with Charlotte all year, and I think both of the youngsters have delivered superbly well. So we saw a retirement for Tom Rawlings earlier on in the pit stop race, but that was nothing to do with him. That was just a mechanical issue on the car. But we've not seen, I don't think, a wheel put wrong from Fraser Fenwick or Tom Rawlings all season. We've not seen a wheel put wrong really either from Charlotte or Warren Gilbert. Warren ran wide a few times yesterday in what was a hard old race for him, pushing hard, and had a couple of grassy moments coming out of Murray's. Charlotte Gilbert almost had a grussy moment there coming out of Nelson. But still just about stays within the confines of the circuit. Is the lead advantage going to come down again? Well, it didn't come down through the first sector, and through the second sector it has come out very, very slightly, so it's not going to be much of a change this time through. It was 3.161 seconds at the beginning of the lap between the race-leading Porsche and the number 3 Lamborghini. This time, over the start-finish line goes Seamus Jennings, there goes Warren Gilbert, and the time does come out. It comes out by 0.3 of a second, and most of that was really in the final sector, I think. Yeah, the final sector. It was much slower from Warren Gilbert through the final sector. It was half a second slower through that last sector than the Porsche was. So the gap now comes back out to 3.8 seconds between the pair of them, with 3 minutes to go. Now they'll be on their penultimate lap of the race this time through, and it's looking as though it is potentially going to be win number 7 of the season for GCAT Racing, because I don't think on pure pace Warren Gilbert is going to catch, let alone get past the Porsche. And why would he do so? Because of course he's concentrating on where he's finishing in Group GTC, and knowing full well that whilst Group GTC he can score full championship points towards the Sprint Challenge, Seamus Jennings out front and leading the way might win Group GT3, but he's still not going to pick up the full championship points in the Sprint Challenge because of the number of entries in GT3 this weekend. Through comes Doc Bush, another one of the cars in Group GTC. He's 4th in Group GTC currently. Heading over the start-finish line, former motorcycle racer. Turning his way through the right-hander at Ritchie's corner, about to start a further lap at the wheel of the Team Parker prepared car. Keith Bush is his actual name, but Doc he's known as. He's a very, very well qualified doctor, orthopaedics, based down in London, in Harley Street, and has been a regular in GT Cup for a couple of seasons now, so huge amounts of motorcycle racing experience. Chris Murphy is running in 4th position. He's also in Group GTC, so that's the car that's 3rd in Group GTC at the moment. Chris, who started the weekend poorly here at Snetterton, had problems with the other car he was hoping to race in the weekend. They had, I think, was it a diff problem yesterday, or a diff breather problem with the car yesterday? So they retired it very early on in the race. But it's been a better day from him today, and the car seems to have run, touch wood, faultlessly so far for our race leader. Though there's more traffic to deal with, about to come up and lap once more the WeBuyAnyPhone.com backed Simpson Motorsport car of Keith Ridge, Darren Ridge I should say, of Darren Ridge, and deals with that one. Darren again just moving neatly out of harm's way. Warren Gilbert will squeeze his way by and run down towards Agostini, I'm sure. But with now just 55 seconds remaining on the clock, we are on to the last lap of the race, which is lap number 13. It'll be exactly the same number of laps as we squeezed out of yesterday's 25-minute allocation. 3.6 seconds is the lead advantage from Seamus Jennings to Warren Gilbert. Charlotte Gilbert holding station in 3rd place. More traffic to deal with though, and for our race leader, thankfully they will meet the Jolt Racing McLaren just on the Bentley straight, so Rupert Williams stays out of harm's way. Warren Gilbert weaves around that McLaren. Charlotte Gilbert will sit in the slipstream of her husband as they head down the straight and up towards the braking area for Brundle and Nelson for the final time, where all of a sudden that lead advantage seems to have come down again, doesn't it? It's all to do with, I think, just Seamus Jennings not overdriving the car. He lost about half a second in the first sector. He lost about another 0.6 of a second in the second sector. So Warren Gilbert is edging closer to him. But I'm sure Seamus Jennings has everything more than under control as he comes up to the final corner on the final lap of the final race of the 2024 GT Cup Championship season. Warren Gilbert got close to his rear bumper, but it was all under control, I'm sure, beautifully well for Seamus Jennings and GCAT Racing, who come through to scoop up another win, their 3rd of the 4 races we've had this weekend in the GT Cup Championship. Warren Gilbert comes through to finish in 2nd position, and if I've got the maths right, that also now means that he picks up the Sprint Challenge for 2024 as well. Charlotte Gilbert comes through to finish in 3rd position in the sister Top Cats racing car. 4th place, we'll have to wait a while for Chris Murphy to work his way over the start-finish line. There's the Top Cats racing team heading back towards the pits for what's been a mega season for them so far this year. So it does mean that they are the team's championship, they are the Group GTC champions, they finished 1st and 2nd overall in the championship, they've won the Sporting Challenge Championship, they've won the Sprint Championship. In other words, I don't think there's anything else they could have won this season other than maybe overall the final race of the year, because that will go the way of GCAT Racing and Seamus Jennings, who also set the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 54.788. Good weekend for himself and Greg Caton and the team to finish off their 2024 campaign in the GT Cup Championship. Chris Murphy has been confirmed as finishing in 4th place. Mark Hellman finished in 5th place. And we just need to wait the arrival of Doc Bush, who is, I think, going to be the last car this year to take a checkered flag in GT Cup. Through comes the Team Parker Racing Porsche over the start-finish line, and he takes the checkered flag and is the last of the cars home in our final race of the 2024 Championship, which is looking good for 2025. I think it's going to be back to the normal numbers of cars that we expect in GT Cup. What has been a difficult financial year for a lot of drivers trying to raise the budgets, but as ever, you know, GT Cup is a good way of racing GT cars. The hospitality and the support that you receive from Butte Motorsport and the GT Cup team is pretty much second to none in the UK. It's a nice, friendly family paddock to be in as well. The racing is good, and hopefully we'll be seeing big grids of GT3 cars, GTC cars, hopefully GTH as well, which has always had huge entries in the past. But again, this year has just seen fewer entries come out at some of the race weekends. But exciting times ahead with revised calendar for next year, meaning that we are ahead of some of the British GT rounds, which certainly attracts some of the GT teams in British GT to come and race with us on weekends. And, as we say, there will be announced in due course subtle change of format to some of the race weekends, which will mean that we won't necessarily always see sprint races of 25 minutes and pit stop races of 50 minutes. Things will be tweaked for at least one of the rounds next year, and all of that will be announced, the details of it, in due course. But I think those changes are going to certainly make those rounds very, very attractive to people as well. So nice sight it makes as the two Top Cats Racing cars head side by side around the circuit on the final slowing down lap. Let's just confirm some results with you before we maybe get some final reaction down there in the pit lane. The results for the final race of the 2024 season for GT Cup. We'll see that Seamus Jennings is going to claim the win for the last race of the year at the wheel of his Porsche, with Warren Gilbert in 2nd place and his wife Charlotte Gilbert finishing in 3rd. Chris Murphy was in 4th place, and in 5th place Mark Hellman picked up the win in Group GTH. At 6th place went the way of Doc Bush. The win in Group GTA went the way of the car in 7th place, which was Rupert Williams, and Darren Ridge finished in 8th place. Bon Grimes had a puncture and retired. Paul Bailey had a little bit of contact and retired on the very first lap of the race, but he wasn't the only one that retired. Michael Laurent, who otherwise had a brilliant weekend in the McLaren Artura, made a mistake, I guess, on that final or that first lap and suffered some damage, so he was a retirement as well. So the cars trundling their way back into the pit lane. I'm hoping that very shortly we might be able to get a little bit of reaction from down there in the pit lane. But for Top Cats Racing with X.com, it has been the perfect season for them. They are quite rightly our overall champions for this year. They are our team's champions for this year. They've scooped up 1st and 2nd overall in the championship. They've won Group GTC, they've won the Sporting Challenge, they've won the Sprint Challenge. They've pretty much won everything, and they've not really put a wheel wrong. The two younger drivers in the team, Fraser Fennick and Tom Rawlings, have done exactly what the team hoped that they would do: drive very quickly, because they don't have much of a self-defense mechanism, youngsters, do they? They just drive flat out, and have had a really good understanding of the Lamborghini Huracan. And particularly for Fraser Fennick as well, who hadn't really driven on slicks in a GT car prior to this season. He's had a mega weekend. So I think shortly we'll be able to get some little bit of reaction from down there before we then sign off for the 2024 season. And we'll do it all again the last weekend of March at Donington Park, where we'll kick off our 2025 championship season for the GT Cup. Stay in touch with all of the social media over the course of the winter, because of course we will be drip feeding out information. But a big old round of applause from all of the teams, the family members and the supporters. Charlotte Gilbert, you can't see her face, but you can see her eyes, but you know there's a big smile going on underneath that crash helmet. She's taking off the hands device. We'll take off the crash helmet, and then hopefully we can gauge some reaction from her, from Tom Rawlings, maybe from Warren Gilbert, just for what has been an unbelievable 2024 championship season. So the crash helmet comes out, the earplugs come out, she does her hair, and I think that Dan is down there to gauge a little bit of reaction from Top Cats Racing for what has been one of the most unbelievable seasons.
Champion, how does it feel?
Pretty ecstatic. I'm just
not just for myself, but my team. I mean, we've been together for, I would say all of us, apart from the youngest ones, have been together for 20 years. We've never lost anybody. And this is our whole team in here. And it's not just drivers, it's an entire team. And I've got so much to thank them for. And GT Cup and my husband Warren, the whole team, Darren, our photographers, everybody. I don't really know what to say. I'm over the moon. Brilliant.
Congratulations. Well done.
There we go. Great to hear from our champions for this year in GT Cup. But that's it. So we have to conclude our 2024 championship season. Thanks for any of you that have joined in and watched the streams throughout this year. Keep your eye on social media. We'll be back for more in 2025. Goodbye from everybody here.